paper. So if you want a glove to keep your hands clean, I have latex gloves that you can use. I think we talked about that yesterday. If you have a latex allergy, obviously don't use it. Grab a little piece of graphite and you're going to go over the whole paper until it turns pretty much black. Okay, you want to be careful. Try not to wrinkle the paper or tear the paper. Okay, when you get a nice smooth coat over the whole surface, which I'm not going to do because I don't want to waste too much time, you will get rubbing alcohol, and that will help sort of smooth the graphite into your tracing paper. So a little bit of rubbing alcohol, cotton ball. You don't want it to be soaking wet, so just a little bit, and kind of squish it into the cotton ball so it's not dripping, and then just go over your graphite and it sort of melts it into that tracing paper surface. And it will smell, it might curl because you are adding liquid to paper, but it will dry quickly and be fine. Okay, so once that looks nice and smooth, you are done with creating your own transfer paper. So pretty easy technique. And then you can save the cotton ball for somebody else if they need to use it. You will fold your paper in half, put your name on it, and put it in your folder. So a finished and used one will look sort of like this, okay? So now we're going to talk about the next step with our gridding. Don't need that. I don't need that either. All right, so I use slightly different measurements for this sample, but you guys have all the resources you need on the board about what sizes to do things, right? So this is my image. I did my 1/2 inch grid on my image. I labeled one side A through J, the other side 1 through 7. Depending on how big yours is, you might have different letters or numbers. And then I drew a 2-inch grid here. Most of you are doing a 1.5 inch grid on your final paper. Okay, I did a 2-inch. And then I also labeled the corresponding letters and numbers. All right, then I'm ready to start drawing my little guy here. So I will look for where the major shapes intersect with my grid lines. And I will take my time and draw that. Okay. If your grid lines are in pencil, you can actually flip your grid over and work on the other side. That way, if you have to do any erasing, you can, and it won't erase your grid lines. I did mine in marker so you could see it on the video, so it doesn't matter if I need to erase. But start with a square. Let's say I want to start here at 7A. All right, so I'm going to look at where the lines of my giraffe sort of intersect with my grid, and then follow those lines. And what I'm looking is at positive space versus negative space and what that creates. This is over here at about, I don't know, maybe a quarter over. And this kind of goes like this. Okay, so on and so forth. So I'm not going to spend time doing that right now, because I have one here ready to go. So here's my giraffe. Okay, I'm ready to transfer this to my watercolor paper. So now, in your designs, pay attention to areas that are going to be black, all right, like these eyelashes here. But I just outlined the shape that they're going to be, and I'm going to deal with the color and the value later, okay? You just want to make sure your major important shapes are there, okay? So that's done. I'm going to slide that over there. So you're going to get a piece of watercolor paper. Now you guys are working in 3 different dimensions, right? You have 12 by 18, 15 by 21, or 16 by 22. I think the majority of us did 15 by 21, is that correct? Okay, so here I will put this on the board for your reference, but on the watercolor paper, what I want you to do is to draw a border just on 2 sides, just like we did on the tracing paper, just on 2 sides, the top and one side. All right, and it's going to be different depending on the outside dimensions of your final image, of your final composition. So if you are 15 by 21, let's take 18, that's this dimension here, 18 inches, minus 15 is what? 3, okay? So what's 3 divided by 2? 1.5. So if I draw a 1.5 inch border on this side, that means my image will be centered this way, okay? And if I take 21 minus 24, I'm sorry, it's this way. If I take 21 minus 24, again I get 3, divide that by 2, it's 1.5, okay? I did all the math for you, all right? So if you have a 15 by 21 as your final dimensions, you draw a 1/2 inch border here, a 1.5 inch border here, and a 1.5 inch border here. Okay, if you did 16 by 22, it's only a 1 inch border on these two sides. If you did 12 by 18, you're going to do a 3 inch border. Okay, does that make sense? Okay, so I did 14 by 20, so mine is going to be a 2 inch border. All right.
I told you I should have bet money.
So to draw my vertical line here, I want it to be 2 inches from the edge of my paper. So I'm going to line my 0 up with the edge of my paper and make a mark at 2. I'm doing this in pen so you can see. Obviously you would be doing this in pencil so that you don't see the line when you're all done. Okay, and I line my 0 up with the edge of my paper and make a mark at 2. Again, depending on your outside dimensions, you need to figure out which border you're going to do. Alright, so I'm just going to draw a line here. Okay, now I will rotate my paper and go the other way. So again, it's 2 inches, and I only need to do 2 sides. I just need a corner, really, okay? So 2. Okay, and then I connect those 2 little marks. Alright? Okay. So now I know my border. This is going to end up being 2 inches here too, but I don't need to worry about that now. If you want to draw it, you can. Now, I'm going to add the corner of my drawing. This is the corner of my drawing. Okay? I'm not worried about the corner of my paper. I'm worried about the corner of my drawing. So I'm going to line that up with the lines I just drew on my watercolor paper. And now I know that this is about 2 inches and this is about 2 inches. So now my drawing is centered on my watercolor paper. So then I would take 2 little pieces of masking tape just to hold down my watercolor paper so that it doesn't move. And then you guys are experts at this. You will take your transfer paper that you made, okay? If it seems really dark and it's leaving a lot of marks on your hands, you might want to wipe it off a little bit. You could grab a tissue or a paper towel and wipe off some of the excess graphite. The first couple times you use it, it might be messy. But you're going to put it dark side down. And I don't need to do anything over here, right? Because there's no drawing here. Take a pen or a really sharp pencil, okay? And you can begin transferring your design, okay? And you will transfer all of those lines until you get it onto your watercolor paper, okay? Now, one thing I want you guys to do is down here, just transfer this corner mark by drawing like a little L right here, okay? So then that way, I'm going to know where to put my tape. Once you're done with your transferring your design, I shouldn't have done that because now I'm going to be all crooked. That's right, I'll erase it later. Once you're done transferring, obviously this would be pencil on yours, okay? You're going to take some masking tape and we're going to tape off that edge. So I'm going to line the masking tape up with that pencil mark I just drew and just press that down, okay? And do the same thing over here. Alright, so this is going to keep your border nice and clean. And it doesn't have to be perfect. Mine are a little bit off, but you know, close to perfect as possible. Alright. And there you have it. So, if there's any extraneous graphite marks on your watercolor paper, erase that first before you go to the next step. Once this is done, tuck all this stuff away in your folder. I want you guys to be in your sketchbooks working on your thumbnail designs for the doodles that you want to use for your final project. I want you to also be thinking about color theory. Okay, which colors are you going to be using and where? All right. Once you have this transferred, you will use Sharpie to create your outlines so they're nice and black. Actually, if you don't want to use black, you could use a colored Sharpie too, that's fine. But have a plan for your color. Then, next week or later on this week, we're going to talk about watercolor and how to get our background laid in and some of the different techniques, like this has some salt on it and what that does to your watercolor. Okay? So that is the basic gist of that. Does anybody have any questions? Make sense? Okay, so I'm going to put these up on the board so that you have these resources here. And I'm only telling you guys to measure in from the 2 sides, but if you want to measure in from all 4 sides, that's fine too. But if you're doing 12 by 18, it'd be a 3-inch border on your final paper. If you're doing 15 by 21, it's a 1.5-inch border. And if you're doing 16 by 22, it's a 1-inch border. Okay? And I think that about does it. So thanks for being so quiet. All right. Let me see if I can get this thing down now.